every day's
Well, what on the inflationary stuff?
No, I just
What do you say about inflationary?
my mind is just everywhere.
Oh, the little pass as it.
There you go. So yeah.
Next, way of trying to afford everything, I guess.
Pretty much.
But and then
like he was all excited.
No, that's good.
it'll be fun. We're excited.
You're on.
Hey, Jeff.
Email something. Yeah, that's what oh, gotcha. Oh, gotcha.
And had a little puppy detour on the way back. Oh, it's good stuff.
And I didn't even know. I didn't even know. Yeah.
Sharp with the stop.
Oh, it's good work.
Right. He's going to have a handful of seniors that he's going to have to keep under control. Oh, well, that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm good, we can start.
Doesn't it? I've heard you say it the other way. Okay.
Ones that they certain numbers of gives them staff.
I'm waiting to see him.
Regarding.
Stop chatting.
Well, the elementary, well, now it's contract from teachers. You don't have any.
New expectation. Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, it's something I like.
Probably not.
Yeah, what?
Oh, well, I don't know what this next is. I know all three injuries so far.
Yeah. So I get down to pickleball, you know.
You'll go and I know.
I don't want to lose. I don't care what sport it is. Like, if I'm moving, I'm going to get.
No, sorry, sorry.
Might take the elevator up on the floor and decide it.
Yeah, I mean,
This is gonna be the last one, because I'll follow it.
right, okay. All right. I'd like to call the meeting in order. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us on our meeting tonight. We're going to open up with our budget workshop number 2. So we're going to go ahead and turn it on over to Jason Van Fossen.
Okay, thank you. All right, so tonight we're presenting draft budget number 1 for 24-25. I want to welcome and thank Cynthia Wombold from CBO, who has been with us for 12 plus years, supporting budget development, and then obviously, answering questions related to everything from tax levy to long-range projections. So Cynthia has been with us the entire time. This is from my leadership standpoint. So thank you again, Cynthia. So tonight we're going to present our working budget draft 1. There is some information from our last meeting that I will go over quickly because you've seen it. Obviously we can pause if there's any questions, but the goal is to move through that information quickly and really focus in on the budget, some enhancements, and then we want to have a discussion regarding tax levy and some suggestions, recommendations regarding where to put reserves, which we know obviously will be at the end of the school budget. All right, so we are also recording this for anyone who wants to watch this both live and in the past, or in the future, I should say. So again, this information is on our website, and we do let our community know that. So again, if people want to go back and look and hear, this information is being recorded. So again, March 7th, this is workshop 2, draft 1. Just a reminder of upcoming important dates, and really the landing gear is starting to come down. Our next meeting, April 22nd, which is I think it's a 6-week gap for us, so that's a pretty big break. But between now and April 22nd, we will have our final budget, and we hope that New York State has a completed budget by April 1st as well, because that's going to help us finalize our numbers. We do have a public hearing on May 9th. That's also our next board meeting after April 2nd. And then the vote is on May 21st. And again, more information to follow on that. So we're getting close. All right, so tonight's objectives, again, you don't need to read them. We've already kind of said them, but this is going to be an opportunity to see what we would like to propose, and also some suggestions that came out of the Strategic Fiscal Oversight Committee that we want to share with you regarding budget development. And as for Maine-Endwell, the variables that are impacting us, these really have not changed from last year. So thankfully, our long-range projections are trending favorably. Foundation aid is not impacted, or it's a slight impact depending on what ends up happening in Albany. Our enrollment is stable, reserves are funded, and our strategic cost savings, i.e. our health insurance changes that we made 3 years ago, continue to perform positively. So all the variables that you look at to determine both current and future budget look good as of today. We all know that things can change quickly, so we'll just leave it at that. Long-range projections, again, this was presented by Kathy Blackman, so I'm going to go through these quickly unless someone has a question. And there has not been any change to this information. So right now, at least as far as we know, these items are still in play. So safe harmless, the removal of safe harmless, is still in play. Again, we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. That does not impact us now, but it certainly could impact us in the future, depending on where we are. The inflation figure calculation, that is still in play, at least to our knowledge. That would impact us this year because the inflation adjustment would be less than we anticipated, and that would be an impact of around $450,000, which we do show in our long-range projection. So again, this would impact us this year if this happens. And then the third, the removal of the minimum increase, while it's not impacting us this year, certainly could in the future. So again, we're still waiting to see what's going to happen. So there's our long-range projections that were shared with us on February 1st. And again, it is showing in that outer year, 27-28, that's where we would start seeing expenditures exceeding revenue. And obviously we'll keep on top of that. But the performance in both the current year and then the 3 years after this year are still looking very favorably, and that's a good thing. And then talking with local superintendents, colleagues, not everyone's looking this good, so we're very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we would have like another couple of reds, sometimes 1 or 2 reds.
Millions of dollars of reds in the past, yeah, we're very fortunate. Thanks for mentioning that. All right, so again, these are projections, but if you look at where we have been and where we are and where it appears we're going, we are looking at very flat enrollment. And in this region and in the environment that we're in, flat enrollment is not a bad thing. So these are conservative numbers too. Last year we projected a slight increase. This year we're flat. Those numbers ebb and flow. We know that there's major economic development going on in Endicott regarding the lithium battery. And then obviously Binghamton University continues to grow, and we know that has an impact on our region. So it would be nice if enrollment stayed stable. If it continues to go up, while a challenge, it's a good challenge, but it does pose a challenge. So that's where we are for enrollment. And again, just looking at it from a graph. So again, not a problem. It's a good thing. All right, our reserves are funded. Again, we did talk in the strategic fiscal oversight about what to do with some of the reserve, or with some of our surplus. We do have some recommendations. Obviously, we go back with CBO and Cynthia and Kathy and review that to see what's possible, what makes the most sense. But we're in good shape. So here is draft 1 of our 24-25 budget. I know that's small, so I apologize. So we are looking at a little under 5%, 4.98% increase year for year, 3 point. I certainly can't see that. So my apologies. I have to get my cheating one. However, we have a slide. This slide, when we originally shared this with you, this slide showed a surplus of around $211,000, and so at the Fiscal Oversight Committee, we made we didn't make a decision, but we made a decision to make a recommendation, I should say, of what to do with that surplus at the time, which was $211,000. And so I'm going to show you what the recommendation was. It's just a recommendation. Obviously, this full board is going to A or nay it. But when you look at what the recommendation is, we are recommending that instead of going out at the 2.96, which would net us the full tax levy amount, if we went at the tax levy minus that 211. So if we use the 211 and simply took less tax levy funds from the local community, it would drop the tax levy from 2.96 to 2.14, and it would close our surplus. It would eat up that surplus. So maybe we should pause here because I built this into the slides moving forward. So again, when we got the first budget, this was the first glance. When we looked at it, our recommendation as a committee was to use that.
So this could change, right?
What would change?
Is this the final roll?
Revenue
Revenue.
The revenue projection would change. However, this projection assumes that the worst case scenario for the revenue projection, and if this one cut was reinstated in the formula, you would receive approximately $450,000 more in a sufficient.
So if we reduce the tax levy limit, how does that affect future years?
That $211,000 would be lost permanently in the base of the tax levy in future years.
So isn't it a percentage?
So so say you're allowed to increase your anywhere from 1 to 3% each year. You would lose the 1 to 3% on top of the $211,000 each year.
So that's within 5 years, you're gonna lose the equivalent of over $1 million.
Right.
Plus, you're just like compounding back for the percentage increase.
And last year we went at 0, so that's already, figured in, I guess.
So the big discussion, we had this discussion last year, when you look at, just to go back, when you look at long-range projections, the feeling was, again, this is, and I agree, I've argued that it's not necessarily in our best interest, but when you look at these large surpluses on top of what we already have in reserves, knowing that you can't just spend that money, because when the cliff hits, you're going to have to take it off the expenditure side. We kind of we're in a good predicament where we could use the local tax levy, but just felt like we were being.
So what we decided in the meeting was we have, within this budget, we have $5 million in projected reserves that we need to bank, okay? Meaning good guys. So we're like, another $200,000, it puts more pressure on us to hide that. Not say hide it, but like put it in the right accounts, right, that are affordable. So that's why we took it against the tax levy, saying we are in a good enough position that this 211 will not affect
Yeah, I
Uh,
was only questioning it because I look 5 years down the road. We never know.
So the surplus, the recommendations, put the surplus in reserves, right? So I must have got the chart.
The theoretical, the hard part now, that you don't get that money back.
Right.
And 10 years ago, before the tax levy limit, 15 years ago, if you had dire straits budgetarily, your community could support a 6% tax increase to cover things you were losing potentially. To go out over the tax levy limit now is just, it's so hard. I don't know of any schools locally that have done it. So you just can't sit there and say, well, we don't take it now, just rent it. We're never going to get it. That's all. I mean,
Right.
good, bad, or indifferent. It's just, the old days was, yeah, we might be able to get that back if things weren't
Right.
going well. People would support a 5 or 6% tax. You don't do it anymore.
So one of the recommendations from the Strategic Fiscal Oversight Committee was to look at some scenarios where foundations would get reduced. Remember, we looked at scenarios with the tax levy limit, I think it was last year. Right? So what happens if, in year 3 or something, right, the foundation starts, it looks like the state is looking for ways to reduce that, based on those 3 risks that were shown.
Yeah,
right?
Cynthia was just looking at this because kind of messages out there is it's
So
things.
by
that turn-
reducing it to your recommendation, how much is that actually saving the taxpayer?
211,000.
Yeah,
No, like household.
Oh, less than 1%,
very
probably
small.
$10,
$10, $20.
It's really small.
per household.
Yeah.
But for the taxpayer, that helps their base going forward too.
So when do we need to make this decision about for the tax levy?
22nd, April 22nd. I mean, we have to file the
So
tax.
the idea is it's like a good faith to the tax, because I guess it feels to me like we could just go out at the 2.96, but you're saying let's do the 2.14 because it's kind of a good faith message to the
Well,
community.
it's both. I think, like I said, with the reserves, we have $5 million in reserves with this conservative budget, and she's saying maybe another 500 grand when the revenues might increase based on the latest revision when the state finalizes. So now instead of 5 million, now we're gonna have 5.5 million potentially, then another 211. So that increase just keeps on going up to a larger number to put away.
And we have time to change our minds back to the 2.96.
Yeah, we have until May.
Right,
April-
right,
April
yeah,
April
we should
22nd.
know,
April 22nd, which is the next board meeting.
Yeah.
Yep,
We should have more information by the state
yep.
by then.
Listen, I think, Greg, and I think you might agree with me, if these long-range projections were negative, like you said in the past, we wouldn't be entertaining this.
Oh,
Okay,
yes,
so
absolutely.
we're in a significant surplus issue here, using conservative numbers for the next
Well,
3-4 years. So
the negative really the negative projections in the out years are conservative
Right.
as well, right? But they've always shown up earlier in the past, just as saying.
But there's a little risk to it.
Yeah,
There was
there's
risk last year, went out at zero.
Right.
Yeah.
Went out at zero. Yeah. Yeah.
But so many people, who have come up to me and told me how much they appreciate it.
Well, that's why I was, is that
Yeah,
we're being responsible then?
So I've kept both scenarios in. We just wanted to bring this up. So this is one. So this would be if we left the 2.96, we would then have to we would have to figure out what to do with the 211.
But we should probably have those scenarios where we take a look at what the foundation is. Right?
I mean, the scenario.
We don't need 10 of them, we need maybe 2 or 3.
So right now, if we want, we certainly can, right? I mean, the scenarios would be, we did this a few years ago. 2% is, we'll say best case scenario, we could do 2%, 1%, 0, and then what, a negative? Those would be a couple scenarios.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it is trending, they're looking, it looks like the governor is trying to, bring that number down.
Right.
Overall. And whether it's just more minimal increases based on some of the factors in the formula, I don't think they're gonna be very large increases in the future. But you also, 3 years ago, we didn't know that they were gonna restore foundation.
Right.
This year, we're looking to cut foundation. You can't always, we can do our utmost best to try to guess what's gonna happen, but we really just don't know what's gonna happen. So all you can do is make a decision based on the best information you have now. I will say that the long-range projection does not have the additional recommendations in it that you are going to see been looking at. So do take that into consideration as well. That $779,000. You have to take that off the operating surplus.
And this long-range projection has nothing touching the reserves, meaning you're not taking stuff from reserve because this is built for...
You wouldn't until 27, 28.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
So we're not touching any of these excess reserves.
Yes.
And that's 4%, is that what those reserves are?
Only one of them is, right?
The unappropriated fund balance. Can't go with-
The rest are like your capital reserves or para reserves. She has a schedule for that.
Okay, so again, that's one decision we'll have to finalize by 22nd. So this is just breaking out expenditures by area. And as you can see, our salaries, instructional salaries, and non-instructional salaries are traditionally our largest. We do have our contracts in place through this school year. Effective 25-26 is when we'll need to negotiate for those years. So we know what these numbers are for 24-25. And we will know health insurance. Health insurance, it's a guess. It's been doing well, but obviously that can fluctuate. So this is at 2.96. This is the revenue breakout, just to show you where we are. And you'll note that we have become much more reliant on state aid as a result of that foundation aid being restored. There was a time where we were about 48-52. Now it is significantly more reliant on state aid because we are receiving more.
So what would this look like? This is if we don't reduce the tax levy.
Correct. I used both just to give you an idea. Yeah.
Oh, then yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yep. And that's what it looked like. So here's our state aid numbers projected. And then the other categories, I know sometimes people are curious to see what's in others, so Cynthia breaks that out. It doesn't amount to much, but just to give you an idea of what those other categories are.
Could you go back a couple of charts, Jason?
Yep.
Yeah, expenditures, I think it was.
Good.
So, I saw an article in the News Book saying that we should plan 10% for retirement.
10%, increase 10% of total salaries.
I thought it was 10% of increase in that. So what's our increase in that?
TRS or ERS?
Well, was it a reserve? It was planning
For the cost increase in pension costs?
yeah.
The ERS rate, it is going up significantly this year.
So that's our smallest base of salaries.
So that has gone up this year.
The
More
teacher
than
final?
I forgot to
10%.
bring it.
It was
I meant to bring it with
The teacher final also? Is that final set?
TRS has gone up from
Somebody had that.
9.76% of salaries to 10.02%.
Maybe that was it. Yeah.
That's not good.
Okay, so then our enhancements, so this is that new number that you saw Friday and that Cynthia just mentioned. So I use our lens because obviously our strategic plan and our focus areas is where we build your budget needs to be, or needs to reflect your strategic plan. So I want to show where our enhancements are reflected in our strategic plan. So obviously this was our renewed focus area and strategic plan that was redone last year. Student support, student experience, and academic excellence. Those are what we've been reporting on quarterly to you, and we will report a third quarter next board meeting. And again, just some of the information. The blue is what we had added to the existing strategic plan per the work last year. So under Area 1, Focus Area 1, and in blue I highlighted where these enhancements are going to be impacting, or what areas I guess they're going to be impacting. So I won't read them to you verbatim, but the first bullet, I'll just note, we're current Tier 1. This is all of our PLC work, and you'll note the items underneath there. So all the work we're doing with PLC, including our PLC at Work Year 2, that is reflected, some of that money is supporting that. At the last, I think it's to provide intervention schedule, yeah. That work I highlighted because we are putting some monies aside for helping with creating time within the school day if teachers need to take time out or administrative time to do professional development PLC work. We do have some money in there for that, so I wanted to highlight that. Same thing, the vertical training, verbal de-escalating training, we do have some monies in there for professional development. That's an area that has become more requested in our buildings. And then attendance, by addressing barriers that impact students, we do have some additional programming that we're trying to offer to students to hopefully keep students engaged in school. So again, just wanted to address where in this work we're spending some new monies. Under Focus Area 2, again, we're continuing to fund and expand our 5th to 6th and 8th and 9th grade, and then also we're continuing to expand our summer programming, which we are now up to, and Dana is in here, I think we're hitting K5, or we're near K5. So all K5 and then 6th grade is being offered opportunities to have summer development, both enrichment but also academic support too. Where we're going to spend a pretty significant amount is in our work-based learning, career connections. We do have some additional programming we want to add. There's some funds that obviously we're asking you to invest for that. And then that in particular, the professional learning communities. That way. Okay, so we are looking at 4 positions, 3 definite requests. One is an item that we want to hopefully allocate funds for when we're ready to move forward with a final proposal. So the social worker at the high school, and I'll break it out, I have justifications. An elementary teacher at Maine Memorial, a music teacher, and right now it's between high school and middle school. We have to firm that up. And then the position of facilities of operations supervisor is a position we would like to explore. And so if we have funds in the budget for that, then we'll be ready to post and hopefully hire that when we're ready. Now these other positions, if we move forward today and you give the approval to move forward, and obviously I know we need to get to April 22nd, and then obviously the voters have to approve it. but the sooner we post for those, the better chances we are to get better candidates. So we've done this in the past. We always put it out as anticipated openings, so that allows us to at least start collecting applicants, doing some interview processes, and then by April 22nd, we'll know if those are going to be in the budget.
I had asked about facilities and operations.
Yep, I'm going to break that up. Yep. Okay, so for the social worker, the justification, I had provided this. This is the justification. I know Mark is here, and if there is any questions, but we don't have a dedicated social worker in the high school. As I think I had mentioned, we have 2 at Homer Brink. Our thought was at one point we would bring one of those from Homer Brink up to the high school, and then we would have one in every building. Because of the size of Homer Brink and because of the needs, it came clear that that was not a good option. So it then left us with, we need to make a decision of if we're going to have this model, then the model at the high school is not the same as the other 3 buildings. So hence, that's the reason for the need. Now, for the model, but also our guidance counselors, our school counselors have taken on significantly more responsibility proactively. And so it is getting more difficult to service some of these emerging needs that come, sometimes literally off the bus or at the very end of the day or any time in between. And so by having that social worker, that's going to provide that level of support. So again, we think that's a no-brainer. Any questions on that? Okay. And Mark, is there anything else that would help round that out?
Yeah, I think it's just the idea. Our counselors want to be acting proactively, but right now they're caught in that basically trap of always reacting to things, and they want to do more of the lessons in the classrooms, and they want to hit more people in group counseling sessions. But with having a social worker, that would free them up to do some of that more proactive work, and especially the work-based learning stuff we're trying to throw gas on right now. They could help support those things. So just to add that to what Jason said, I think it would be very beneficial.
How would the social worker be involved in that, in the work-based learning?
No, the counselors.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I got you.
yeah.
So for the elementary teacher, our goal has been to try to keep elementary class sizes, and we have a unique program in early kindergarten, so that certainly is unique to us in many aspects. We've tried to keep it between 18 and 21. 19 and 21 is ideal. Now, when you look at, so that red box is highlighting Maine Memorial, but then also district-wide. So with Maine Memorial's current projections, we're still in pretty good shape on average between 21 and 22 grades 3 through 5. But Maine Memorial keeps experiencing enrollment increase. And if you notice that 24, 23, 25 for grades 3, 4, and 5, those are high, especially if enrollment doesn't look like it's dropping, or we're not seeing that typical, fluctuation in September. Things, what the numbers are today, they typically end up being in September. So our fear is if we don't address that now by adding an additional person, then we're going to be in a situation, and we've done this in the past where we had to go out and try to hire in August to fill a class size that was large. So the risk is enrollment drops and our class sizes drop to where we want them, and we have an extra person. That's the one risk. The other risk is we don't, and those class sizes get bigger, and now 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at 23, 24, 25 is tough. So that's why we want to add at least one position there. And I'll put a caveat there that, we just can't keep adding classrooms. I think Bill has looked at his building. He could add 2 more classrooms right now. The one that we're looking to add here, and potentially 1 more. After that, we're done. Because we're going to displace potentially 5 people if we use those 2 classrooms. So those are other service providers. So we're literally running out of room at Maine Memorial. And so I'm not saying that we're going to have classes of 29, but our goal of 18 to 21 is going to be difficult if we literally run out of space. So we are bumping up into that area. We've got 2 class spaces potentially. We're going to use one of them with this. And if it continues to stay high, we're probably going to need to use that second. And then at that point, we're We're done for extra classroom until the addition gets put on, and then we have a little bit of breathing.
When that happens.
So, but that's got to happen, right? Right. So that's the justification for that. Again, it's a good challenge when you have enrollment that is steady and or increasing. So for the music teacher at the middle school, high school, again, we have to work on that. A lot of it is it's enrollment driven. Obviously, the growth in the enrollment, you're going to see that in about 30 minutes. Significant increase, significant growth both in the elementaries, and then that obviously translates up into the middle school and high school. So that's one need. We kids are using our music program and they're excelling at it, number one. Number two, we've tried to add some additional coursework, additional opportunities for kids in music outside of the traditional, symphonic band, chorus, orchestra. And so by doing that and having bigger numbers, it's creating that bubble, that bulge, if you will. So I think our goal will always be to try to continue to offer music programming for all students. But right now, we're at that point where an additional staff member could help ease some of that. And I know that's, one is, we probably could use 2 or 3, but for now, we're going to start with 1 and see where we go from there. But again, there is definitely an enrollment bubble, if you will. So that's the justification for those 3. And we really feel comfortable with those 3. And again, like Cynthia said, we have to bake those in. Obviously, we want to make sure we can afford everything that we add. And we're probably getting up to that saturation point where we can't just keep adding. But this will give us definitely some room within the music department to grow. And then the last one, and I said in the Friday update, we're studying. Now, I don't want that to sound like we're just throwing it in here and we don't have an idea. We have an idea, but we're not ready to move forward in post because A, I want to make sure this is something you support before we do it. And then number 2, that's something that we have to, it's different than, a teacher where you can post, we want to make sure that we're getting the right person, that we have the right title. So there's a little more work to do on that. But if we don't get the money allocated now, then we'd have to come back to you and say, hey, we're adding more to the budget. I know we didn't plan for it, and then all that it does for your, for your projections. So we'd rather be proactive and address this now than come to you in August and say, hey, we'd like to use X amount. So here's the justification. And again, I'm sorry, it's a little small. So right now, and Lynn, you asked the question, how's the work getting done? The work's obviously getting done. Is it getting done efficiently, in the best possible manner, in a logical way? And is there a way we can do it better? With the idea being that we can save money, more efficient, better quality. So this is our current setup. We have maintenance and grounds, and that's the staffing, and it has a maintenance supervisor, and that person oversees 7 people, 4 general mechanics, who are then dispersed into each building. So the department, even though it has 4 general mechanics, the 4 general mechanics do not work within one space. They are assigned to each building. And then there's 3 maintenance workers that, maintenance/grounds. They do all of our, major facility needs, and then all of the mowing, all of the striping, all of the taking care of the grounds and any of our fields. Then we have, within the same department, so it's maintenance and custodian, that's the department. Then we have building custodians, or building custodian. And within there, we have head custodian in every building, the general mechanic who's assigned to the building, and then obviously we have other custodians and or cleaners. So you have a maintenance grounds crew that has its own supervisor, but is also split because those general mechanics fall within the building. They don't fall under the head custodian. And then the building principal, who oversees the head custodian, has to coordinate with the maintenance supervisor because the general mechanic technically reports to the maintenance supervisor. So it's very clunky. And when it was designed, and Jeff certainly can speak to this, the thought was that would be the ideal model, that the general mechanics would be in each building and they could take care of the needs in each building. What happens though is there's a triangle of who's talking to who. And it's not the most efficient, it's just not a very efficient model, number 1. Number 2, We don't have any dedicated staff currently that oversees second shift. So when you come into the building after 3 o'clock and you see maintenance and custodian, or you see custodians, we don't have a dedicated supervisor. So the head custodian will give, work assignments, and then they leave. The maintenance supervisor is done at 2:30, 2 o'clock. So that whole second shift is left basically unsupervised. And I don't mean that in a way that, we got to be careful, it's just they don't have direction, they don't have someone overseeing them, and they certainly don't have anyone both supporting but also making sure that work is getting done and it's proactive. So it's just a model that doesn't have a leader. Now, we also have been doing some other research, and so there's a couple other areas that we want to look at. We think that third shift right now, we think a third shift is needed, in particular at the high school. So think of the high school. They start at 6 o'clock, the kids leave around, dismissal at 2:30, and then the second shift comes in around 2:30, and their job is to clean until about 10:30. But we have activities going in this building all the way up until 9 o'clock. So you have custodians that are literally, in some instances, having to go and do their work while the area that they're supposed to be cleaning is being utilized, and then with an hour left are hurrying up to try to take care of the pool, the gym, the hallways. So it's just not an efficient model, and we're not certain that, I don't want to say this, so I'll be careful. It's not that the work's not getting done, it's not ideal. So we're thinking about a third shift, particularly at the high school. But that's going to require someone also to have a plan of action and to oversee that work. So that's one area. The other two, we've been doing some research. There's a company called WCS Management. We met with them. They have a management service where they come in and basically oversee your people. And they provide recommendations and they give tasks. Basically, you're buying a management service. We didn't know if that was a good model. Again, it's been used elsewhere sporadically. But there was some interesting, it brought to light some areas that we could definitely improve because we don't have that. They would be coming in and being that position. It's a part-time service, it's not a person. And then the last one is, there's some really good technology out there. This master library is something we're investigating, which digitizes workflow and getting jobs done. And what was the other one called? It's a digitized work system that is easy and efficient to use. It's BOCES-able. It could be something that we could potentially use right now we still are using paper, a lot of paper. This would maybe more digitized in 21st century up our processes. So we've been spending a lot of time researching this, but the real bonus is this. This is what we see this position potentially doing. We would now have one person overseeing both. So it's not maintenance and custodial, it's facilities and operations. That's the department. So the departments would be merged together. We wouldn't have two separate. And then here's the efficiencies, as I highlighted in yellow, and that's what we would like them, that's what we see them doing. So in my time, and I think in Jeff's time, so we've never had this position. And that title is something out of civil service, that's why I put an asterisk. It may not be that title. We certainly don't want to get handcuffed by civil service because it can be challenging. So we'll have to look at that, which is why we're not ready to come to you with a full-fledged title. But I put this in front of you to say that we've spent a lot of time looking at this, and we recognize that as we continue to add square footage to our buildings, we continue to have more use of our facilities. We add more things like turf and things like that require more upkeep and maintenance. And the other thing is we like our facilities to look nice and to be upkept and maintained. And when you have a thin and a disjointed model, some of that work doesn't always get coordinated like it should. So, is this an extra and a luxury? I'd say it's not a luxury. We certainly are doing it now, but it's an opportunity for us potentially to clean up some processes and be better at what we're doing versus just maintaining and managing.
So how do you coordinate the shift changeover today?
So you have some slight overlap with the head custodian before they leave. We'll try to meet with the custodians that are coming in. Sometimes it's from 3 o'clock on, there's no supervision. With, you look at the high school with events going on, and it isn't probably the best model. We did have a second shift supervisor. Tim Callahan did it maybe 8-9 years ago. and then we abandoned it with budgetary issues. But that was a good model because if you get an event at the high school, a lot of times they're getting pulled to the gym or to the auditorium and they're not fully doing their areas and you just, there's not a lot of leadership to get the work done.
So if you're hiring a facilities and operations supervisor, how is that going to help with the
Might be a
supervision
9
over
to
the
5:30
second shift?
position.
The what?
Could be 9 to 5:30.
They'll have a
10
split,
to
they
6.
still have a split.
And then if you want to go ahead and do a third shift, then that's going to require hiring more employees for that third shift.
No, we just shift what we currently have to it.
Like, so the people that can't clean, what they just come back later.
Yep.
So what we might take, because you want to have at least.
So you might have less people. a
No, you'd have the
second
same
shift
amount,
and more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Instead of
But
6
like-
total, you might have 4 and 2.
Right, okay.
And some schools do it, Johnson City does it for security reasons
And
too.
so would we also still have like a head custodian position? Like what happens to that position?
Yeah, it's still there, because it's during, I mean, they're there during the day. You know, usually the general mechanics are there, and there's a lot of cafeteria setup, cleanups. So, yeah. I mean, ideally, in a perfect world, the head custodians would be second shift, but you wouldn't find too many people that want to do that.
So you would authorize us to hire a fourth maintenance worker. We hired it and then that person didn't work out. So that money, you know, part of that money would be this position that we have built in that we haven't used. So it's not full 120, it's not full.
Right. I mean, did you weigh the options for hiring an operations supervisor versus like Jason mentioned, you know, we're growing, right? Buildings, facilities and so forth. Or is it more beneficial to try to help more, to hire more help, like to have enough custodial?
I mean, honestly, I think it's a combination of both. I mean, you can throw 2 more people at the high school, but if there's nobody that's there truly supervising in real time, it doesn't always work.
Right.
You know?
In my experience, the shift change coordination is pretty important.
Yeah, and you might have 15 or
We have
30
meetings,
minutes of
we have
overlap.
shift
Yeah,
change meetings.
no, most of them always do, but then like I said, now you're leaving 5 people to go clean a building, manage events that.
And right now, our shift change is somebody's just giving them, this is their shift.
They might review, hey, from last night, here's some issues, here's what we need to work on, so, you know. But
No one's there literally working with them to go through it. It's basically handing over the checklist.
That supervisor that we're talking about now works what shift? What do they work or what? How do they get their 8 hours in?
which one?
Maintenance
Currently?
supervisor?
When we might
Or
hire.
like the head custodian.
I'm sorry, the head custodian.
Let's talk
Head
about.
custodians first shift. They come in at 6, open the building, work with the general mechanic. And then, like I said, they're here till 2:30. High school, second shift starts, they come in at 2, there's that 30-minute overlap.
So would this be a salary position?
Probably, yeah.
So they could probably alter their schedule.
Yeah.
Or,
Well,
you know,
that's, I
one
think
day
that's
come
the
in,
key.
right, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, right, probably be on call a lot, I mean,
Yeah,
too,
oh,
so.
absolutely. But I think it's really, you can't say it's, to me, it's not 6 to 2:30. It's
Right.
gotta be like that 9 or 10 o'clock to 5 or 6 o'clock.
Well,
And on a
Well, I
busy
don't think,
night, on
I'm
a
not
busy
sure it'd
night.
be 8 hours either. That's
Right,
my
oh
thought.
yeah, and on a busy night, you got a wrestling match going on at the high school. We're pulling all these guys out of there, and you're
Right.
asking people that aren't
But no one's.
necessarily leaders to try to run an event, type of thing, where this, if you said to somebody, hey, Mike, this is your job, we're gonna come in at noon today and stay till 9, because we have wrestling from 6 to 8:30. So, I mean, it just would have to have some flexibility.
Oh, so there's, I get it.
Yeah, it'd have to be-
Shifts
it'd have to be a
kind of
flex, yeah.
change a little bit. So the problem that we're solving is being able to have that overlap
More
coordinator and more supervision.
And now you have one person overseeing all of the purchasing, all of the coordination. I mean, we can't really, it's hard to calculate, but I can tell you right now, which in our conversations with our head custodians, it's not streamlined. So there's that whole side too. You know, purchasing and coordinating of time and being able to say, we have a project going on at home or break, like today. Hey, we've got this big event here at the high school. We need to move people from buildings to make sure that we have coverage. So now it's not the building principals trying to figure out, do we have enough people in the building to take care of the cultural fair? This person is saying, we have a big event here, we need to make sure we have the resources here. Someone is joysticking the use of our people to where the need is. It's not falling on each individual building to figure out if they have enough
So
people.
don't we put an administrative position also that oversees, right, grounds and transportation?
We don't.
We don't. Steve's not considered administrative. It's just a civil service type. So it's up for
And
consideration.
quite honestly,
Like I said,
would say
it's a study.
It's hard to ask people in the same bargaining unit to supervise and write them up and get on them sometimes. It's just, you can say, oh, I'll do it, but then when push comes to shove, it's a very awkward, it's like saying to a teacher, supervising on the teacher. It's not fair.
Right,
You know.
I looked at the organizational chart, it falls under you, right?
Yeah.
All of this falls under you,
Yeah.
so are you the person who handles that sort of thing right now?
With the principals, with Mike Owl,
Gotcha,
with
gotcha.
Steve, with the custodians, with,
So it's a grouping of you that handle it.
Would this include the bus garage?
no.
Yeah, right.
And some schools have a position like that, that kind of does building and grounds and transportation. You know, the hard thing, not hard thing, the nice thing with transportation is, if somebody's full-time doing transportation, it's fully able. You know, so there's really no incentive to try to break that position in half when you can get 90% of your position. So,
Okay, so that is, again, we're studying. Wanted to put that in front of you. All right, the other enhancements, work-based learning, these are some individual items. You've had all the supporting documentation provided, which is the why, why, how it's tied in. If there's any questions, I have people here that can answer them for you. This is our professional development. When I say BOCES 8, the first three lines are BOCES 8able, the additional hours would not be. That would be to cover early release days that we put those. Some other programming, student programming. And we don't have a budget line for WASD, but we had that presentation, obviously we have funds, we could assign some once we have a better idea. Safety and security, again, we'd like to renew the contract. It's going to go up $30,000, so we're going to adjust for that. Again, we would like to continue to keep that contract in place. And then that adds up to $789,000 that you saw. So those are our enhancements. That's what we're asking for. Now for the tax levy, and we'll go through this pretty quick because you've seen this. Again, this is the conversation we just had. So by the 22nd, the board will need to determine if it's 2.96 or 2.14. So we'll need to know that by the 22nd. If we did go out at 2.96, again, this is what we've done over the years. That very far right column shows you the tax levy limit. So we've never gone above it, but we have gone below it in a few years, the last 2 years in particular. If we did go out at 2.14, that would be the amount that we would be not collecting, that 0.82%. So I just want to show you that. And that gap is what you lose, and then it compounds over time that you can't get back. So just to show you what that looks like. So our recommendations, and these are draft, obviously. So number one, that's the district spending plan. You'll have to approve the spending plan, and then that becomes a proposition for the voters to approve. So you're approving the spending plan. And yeah, everything that goes within the spending plan, obviously, you're reviewing it okay too. But that's what you're approving for the voters. So that's $72 million. Obviously, through that, you would be approving those recommendations. All right? And so by April 22nd, we'll need to have a firm commitment or understanding of what you're going to approve or support. We believe in continuing to keep, obviously, our reserves replenished. And I don't know, Greg, Mike, if you want to just chime in what we had talked about regarding that $5 million right now.
This is in the minutes, but I think it was 50% in the health insurance, it was 30% in ERS, and then 10% in repair reserve and 10% in capital reserve.
So we'll work with Cynthia on that regarding those numbers, but those were just some ideas of where we might want to put that.
Are you adopting your leave in house tonight? The repairs are a proposition,
Okay.
so that may not be on the table.
Okay. All right. Okay. But we have more than enough in there already.
Okay.
All right.
I think we should shift,
Look at what the other one is.
Yeah.
I have a question. On this, you said this is the worst case scenario, meaning it's the most conservative. The additional, say 450K or say it's half of 200K, what's our strategy if that comes in higher with the additional funds? Should we meet again, or how to handle this additional?
There is a suggestion we might want to meet again.
Yeah, so whatever.
You would have two options. First, let me just say that if I had to say today whether it was going to come in or not, I'd say it's not.
Correct.
But we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. Okay? You have really two options. You can under budget revenues, so you just simply not budget that. That will help you in the future because then we would budget those. That would help close the gap in future years. Right? So that's a strategy that we've used. Or you would add something else to the budget. I wouldn't at this point in time recommend adding anything else long term. We wouldn't really identified here. So maybe something like
So again, we'll come back to you on that, but the recommendation is to continue to put money in reserves as long as we can.
Is there any place to have conversation, or is this now where we would talk about if we went out at a higher percentage, what we could do with that money? Like, we're talking about these 2.1 and 2.9, right? We're talking about going out at, and the difference in that revenue.
Yep.
Where would we entertain?
That's essentially what she said there.
I know.
Yeah.
But we're saying, we're going out, you're asking us for these additional positions. If we went at either, this is what you're asking for, if we go out at 2.1 or if we go out at 2.9, this is what you're asking for. But if we go out at 2.9, that's going to bring in additional revenue.
Correct.
Could we entertain an additional, what we would do with that additional money, where it could be used in with positions, other things that you were looking at, you said, well, we're not going to ask for that because it might not. Like if I'm saying if we're going to bring in this much.
I don't know when to ask.
Another enhancement.
That would be the
enhancement?
$210,000.
Boom. So you look at that.
It's $210,000.
I guess that's where,
You would
yeah,
have
I
to
didn't
put
know
in
when it was
expenditures somewhere.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Would we want, is this the appropriate time to entertain if we did that? What positions, what's on your wish list that we could bring in?
like just you attached some of the proposals and I responded and said, oh, this is really exciting. There were some you were not doing all the asks from so then would now be like, why are we not doing that? We have $200,000. You know, I guess that's what Lynn and I are trying to ask.
So
what is our role in asking these questions?
Yeah, no. So, I mean, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make recommendations that we feel we can afford.
And sustain over
And
year over
sustain.
year. Yeah.
And then, so the conversation around the tax levy always revolves around, that's what we're asking local taxpayers to pay, so we're trying to be, cognizant of that.
Yeah.
If we were to entertain additional staff, then we would potentially look at that 211, and then that would also make that decision regarding, then we're gonna go out at 2.96.
Right. Or if you meet somewhere in the middle, you
Yeah.
say, okay, we have one additional position and we go at it something in between the two. I think,
I'd ask.
That's what we did the year before last.
yeah, I would, I
So I think the question is, when do we have that conversation?
yes.
Yeah.
Now, so that we can run some numbers, and then like Cynthia said, we have to go back and look at our long-range projection, and then, we have to run some numbers.
Yeah.
We're asking for X. If you say, what if you ask for Y? Then we'll go back and plug that into the budget and say, what would that look like?
So, and the other thing, the reason why I'm asking for these scenarios is if we go out at 2.14%, right? And foundation aid next year comes in at 1%. So we're planning foundation aid to come in at 1%, 2% every year, right? What if it comes in at 1%? What if we're hit with one of the other, those other, whatever you call them, three risks, the three risks we're talking about. I mean,
So we'll run some scenarios on foundation aid. We'll add a few more positions and see what that looks like if we were to use the 211. These will be all scenarios. We'll get that to you ahead of April 22nd.
and also we need to see
Yeah.
if the foundation aid is reduced and we reduce the tax levy, what does that do?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, so this
It's
is
only
the time
3 or
for
4,
that.
it's not 20, right?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Because everything you're presenting there with those positions is going at what tax levy, or doesn't?
2.14. Well, either one, right? Either one, because we haven't decided which one we're going to handle.
We had also talked about the sign at the middle school. Is that something you're talking about now, or is that just not a, is that, this is?
No, that would be this year's budget.
Okay, that's what I thought, okay.
Okay.
So what I saw in that budget run though, the foundation aid increase was actually 2.94%. No, I think it was, yeah, the foundation aid was 2.94%, not what was in Cynthia's presentation last time.
Oh, on February 1st?
Yeah. So it already seems
On the
like it's
long range
not what we
projection.
thought it
Long
was.
range,
Yeah, February 1st.
we go back.
Yeah,
Thought we
yeah, it was,
I thought we had updated it based on our analysis.
Because I used your latest.
you may have been given a BOCES overall number. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, we'll look
We
at
can check
that. Just again, that's the there's only 2 more. Stay at the 4%, which again, statutorily we can. So always try to keep 4% as unassigned. Not more than that, but close to 4%. Again, this will be depending, we'll have to know by next board meeting if it's 2.96, 2.5, 2. Whatever that number ends up. So I put 2 in there depending on what we do. So again, that will change obviously. And then our bus replacement plan. So right now, this is a separate proposition. Mike's requesting that we go out at 6. And the reason for that is, and then we would be replacing at 6. So that's why we show that. But this is the plan that Mike's put together to get us to, that goes from this year to 2035, I think, when we have to have all zero emission buses. So we're going to start ramping up our purchasing of buses to get to where we need to be, assuming this all stays as a requirement. So we're buying 2 more than we typically could because we're trying to ramp up diesel buses before that 2027. Mike, anything more to add on that?
Just that last time I spoke to you folks, we're expecting to get reports back. I had a preliminary report. Jason and I talked in April. I plan on giving you a more thorough information regarding that.
Okay.
Well, we have a plan.
That's the other budget risk, by the way. Zero emission buses.
So that's it. So, all right, we have some direction from you regarding some scenarios you want to see, and we'll go back and we'll start working on those, and Cynthia will touch base tomorrow and get those numbers going and start working on some scenarios. So, any other questions for us or Cynthia? All right, so this is draft 1, first round. All right, thank you very much. Thanks, Cynthia.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.